Today, Walking with Wilkie is looking at Chapter 6 of Rambles Beyond Railways by Wilkie Collins, The Lizard. The day that Wilkie Collins and Henry Branding left Helston, it had rained incessantly for 24 hours. To wait longer, doubtful whether the sky would clear even in a week's time, was beyond mortal endurance. We shouldered our knapsacks and started to the Lizard in defiance of rain. They carried on walking along the lanes. They went past a steaming cow by the side of the road, and then they saw a horse, a mangy old horse, coughing. And then they saw a peasant walking along the road who looked at them and gave them a bit of a grin and a wink and said, "This sort of weather can last for 2 weeks." When Collins eventually found the inn, he couldn't believe how he had to push his way through the animate and inanimate things. He had to go through all the livestock in the garden, come with me. And then when he found it, he went through and found the kitchen door. And when he walked in, he couldn't believe what beheld his eyes. When Wilkie Collins came into the inn, he was astounded in what he saw. There was babies everywhere. Babies toasting by the fire, babies propped up on dressers, in cradles, in long shawls, in short shawls, and all the mothers talking. It was an incredible scene. He couldn't understand why. Then all of a sudden, like an engine starting from a train station, the hostess burst through. It was a large, corpulent woman who came forward and gave them a hearty welcome. She explained that what was happening on the Lizard is that their doctor had got sent off to London and was coming back to vaccinate all the Cornish cherubs on the Lizard from the smallpox, and that the festivities were just about to start. Collins decided to make a hasty exit out of the door. When Collins came to the Lizard, he heard that people walked on walls. And he said when he came down here, he actually saw people for miles around walking around the Lizard. I'm going to give it a go now. Use my backside. Oh. Yay. Okay. Now, Collins said when he walks on the walls, there was a really strong wind blowing in his face, and it's absolutely hard going. You can see the lighthouse. When he arrived at Lizard Point, he was amazed by the views. The beautiful serpentine rock with the colours of green and red absolutely captivated him. He managed to then go off with a guide, and Henry Branding just went off to do his illustrations. Collins writes about how 100 years earlier than when he came here, there was a shipwreck, and it was a troop carrier, and every man was drowned on it bar for 2 people. Now, when they were washed up on the shore, there was 200 bodies, and they dragged them up and took them into this place called Pistol Meadow, where they buried them in pits of 10 and 20 people. Now, when Collins came here, there was still the mounds of earth in the field, and he could see the pits where they were buried. And legend has it that people would not come here at night because they were just terrified of the ghosts that were around here. Now, amazingly, this place is called Pistol Meadow. It's nothing to do with the Sex Pistols. It's actually because after the shipwreck, all the troops' weapons were washed up on the shore, so there was lots of firearms. So they called it Pistol Meadow after that. And I've got something to tell you about this little thing as well. Now, what I have to tell you next involves these creatures, dogs. Now, rumour has it, Collins tells me, that when all the bodies of the 200 men were lying dead on the shore, all the wild dogs of the area came to the Lizard and started eating the bodies, and the local people had a massive trouble keeping the dogs away. Oh, yum yum, eh, Branding? Well, so from then on, the people of the Lizard had an abhorrence for dogs, and Collins said he didn't know if this story was true, but there certainly wasn't many dogs around here when he came. Off you go, dirty dog. While at the Lizard, Wilkie Collins went to Asparagus Island. It's called Asparagus because asparagus grows over there. But when Wilkie got there, he said it was like no garden asparagus he'd ever seen. Anyway, apparently he said of a shipwreck that happened on Asparagus Island, and the poor crew from the ship, half drowned, grabbed wood and started swimming back to shore. Unfortunately, they were right by Devil's Throat, which was a place that sucked up the sea and threw it back. And as they swam in, thinking they were nearly safe, suddenly Devil's Throat pushed out a huge bank of water and they were swept to their deaths out to sea. Another story he told was when a very, very large lady was climbing Asparagus Island and all of a sudden fell, and her guide managed to grab her by the ankle and save all 16 stone of her. When they got to Devil's Bellows, Wilkie Collins and his guide stopped off so that the guide could tell him a few stories of stuff that had happened. He told him the story of the old man who had come here and he'd been climbing the rocks, but was so terrified that he was holding on, that he gave his deathbed confession, only to be rescued with everyone in the neighbourhood knowing what he'd been up to in his life. He also said about smugglers who had run along here with their contraband, dropping it over the cliffs, and then having to fish it out, but falling to their deaths when they'd fished it out. It was all exciting stuff. But by 2 o'clock the tide was coming in and it was time to make their way back to the inn for a good meal and a good pint that night. I think we found the coughing horse from earlier when Collins was travelling to the lizard. Yeah, down boy. Well, that concludes chapter 6, The Lizard. And I'll be leaving my Walking with Wilkie card.
Yes, I've noticed it again. Well, I guess it's where I'm looking. It happens now and then. I can hear